Dr. S. Jayashankar, Honorable Minister of External Affairs, Your Excellencies, GTS speakers, distinguished delegates, good evening and welcome to the Global Technology Summit 2023. It is our continued privilege to be able to host the GTS with the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. This is indeed a unique partnership. It started in 2016. It was born out of the creativity, imagination, and foresight of the current minister and others, including the founding director of Carnegie India, Professor C. Rajamohan. Minister, I can openly confess in the hundreds of meetings that we take for the GTS, now across countries, companies, and within our own government, there's only one that really kind of essentially rocks our cage, and that's the one with you, primarily because in the meetings that we take with the minister, we're constantly pushed to think about the purpose of our actions. And we've thought about that very carefully with the GTS. We want the GTS to be outcome-oriented. This logic is baked into every single part of what we do over the next 3 days. Last year, the GTS started a day before India took over the presidency of the G20. We spent a lot of time thinking about India's digital priorities. India's presidency of the G20 and leadership moved member states to produce the first multilateral consensus on a framework for DPI, a term that frankly few knew this time last year. At the G20 virtual summit a few weeks ago, the Honorable Prime Minister has taken this mission forward. He announced the creation of a social impact fund for building DPI across the world. We are committed to this DPI journey, and a good part of this GTS is about thinking about the modalities of deployment, institutionalization, partnership, a very different grammar and syntax to the one last year. At the same time, we could not host a global summit such as this without seriously considering the varied effects of artificial intelligence. We took the advice of some of the best names in the game. Many of you are here today, met with different parts of our own government, and also connected with people like philosophers and teachers and professors to try and think about how do you conceptualize 2.5 days to get the best in and out of AI. We're delighted that we've been able to do so in terms of at least convening everyone. We'll see where the conversations go. But we also hope to keep these conversations in mind with the GPAI, or the Global Partnership for Artificial Intelligence, that India will convene in about 10 days from now. Separately, we do believe that there is a need for a serious discussion on an Indian way in AI. We need not follow others. There are those in this room who have a thesis for a strategy for change, keeping India's contexts and needs in mind. This will be unbundled over the next couple of days. Lastly, a good part of the GTS last year was dedicated to unpacking tech partnerships. The ICET, or the Initiative of Critical Emerging Technologies, was a terminology that needed substance. The EU-India Trade and Technology Council had been announced, but a high-level meeting was yet to take place. Much has happened in the last 12 months. We remain committed to each of these explorations and partnerships to deepen India's linkages with other parts of the world. From workshops on export controls, defense innovation, and military applications of AI, to thinking about DPI in the Quad, to those dedicated to furthering these exact technology partnership, we hope that the next 3 days will be fruitful for all of you and those joining us from different parts of the world. GTS is also an opportunity to engage with those minds and hearts that will frankly determine the long future. We're very proud that we have this year 35 GTS ambassadors who join us from our neighborhood, from Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, and different parts of India in itself. Our hope is that next year we can take this cohort into 50 different countries across the global south. The various collaborations and the intensity with which we are able to invest in the GTS would not be possible without the support of our partners, and there are many. This is a term that has kind of proliferated as GTS has potentially proliferated in the last 8 years, but we're absolutely clear that the partnerships not only make GTS possible, but as importantly, they make GTS more interesting and effective. There is a GTS ecosystem that is too large to vocalize here, but they're all on the screen, as you can see. The generous support of the Ministry of External Affairs have allowed us to keep recreating GTS, and frankly, gently pushing us to do exactly that. Developing this larger ecosystem, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the current Joint Secretary, Policy Planning and Research, S. Raghuram, and his team, led by Ambarish and others, for their incredible support. This is truly a team sport that we play together. Lastly, if you would allow me the liberty of mentioning and thanking the incredibly charged, driven, and unfailingly supportive team at Carnegie India to bring us up to this point, led by Konark, Soyash, Shruti, Surya, Shatak, Ayush, Upasana. The name goes on, but you know who you are. I think in many ways, this summit perhaps best exemplifies how the best of collective action, aided and supported by all of you sitting here, and those who are joining us from, I believe, 174 countries from across the world in the last count, make this conversation hopefully useful, effective, and will get us to shake the tree as we move on various policy landscapes and think about them carefully over the next 2.5 days. With that, it is my distinct privilege to invite on stage the Honorable External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar.